Hi, everybody. I wanted to take a minute and show you a new tool that I've created to help me track my observations and conversations that I'm having with my students. So I've made this to allow me to kind of document when I observe students meeting expectations for our course. And also when I have conversations with them, and those conversations are showing that the students are, again, meeting the expectations of our course. And I found that I needed a tool to kind of help me keep track of who I have observational evidence from for which expectations. And this is a Google Sheet version of something that I've created and had a lot of success using on paper. But um, but now using an iPad, by holding my iPad and or my phone and moving around in my classroom, I'm able to kind of easily track my observations. And I know for me, I have to be able to kind of track who I've talked to about what or observed doing what. Otherwise, I totally forget for when I go into my reporting periods. So I've made this in Google Sheets, and I want to give you a little bit of a tour of it. Um, so when we are assessing in science, my department uses learning goals, and it looks like this. So we have about eight-ish learning goals for each of our units, and it's kind of a hybrid between our overall expectations and our specific expectations in our curriculum. And it uses language that students are really able to understand what they're being assessed on. That's a topic for another conversation, but I just wanted to give you some insight into what you're going to see here. So, this is a tab in my Google Sheet. So, A1 is one of my learning goals for my course. And, like, right up here, you can see that, like, I've got my expectation up here. And I have my students listed on my left, and then I have this is my scale that I'm using. So we use a 5-point scale, just 5 being like a perfect every time, and a less than 1 being like no idea what's going on. Like they have no, like they don't even recognize what the topic is. And then we've kind of given ourselves some prompts. So like 4 is, you can teach others, but you're not getting perfect every single time, almost there. 2 is you can follow along with support. So support would be something like their notes, or they can follow along with a peer, or they can follow along with you. But they need some kind of support to meet the expectation. Number 1 is like, if you ask them a question, like guiding or prompting questions, they can't answer them. And then we kind of already talked about less than 1. So I have made multiple columns here. This whole sheet is for assessing whether or not my students can formulate questions and plan their investigations. And what I find is that I might assess this, or I have the opportunity to observe this expectation multiple times throughout my course. So, what I want to do is be able to kind of track from the beginning of the course to the end of the course. How often I make the observations of my students. So I will come up here to the box and I will write date. So if today on November 4th, I tracked this observations, or I made some observations of this expectation, I would put the date here, and then I would put in my observations using a numerical scale. And then if I come back 2 days later and do this again, I would put another date here, and I would assess I would put my tracking in this column. I did add a column at the end to average it out. So if you're a numbers person and you want an average, it will do that for you. I really like just to kind of see where the student is and if they're achieving some growth. So if I'm assessing my students and I'm interacting with them in my classroom, and I notice that like Monica is planning investigations and asking really great questions, then on my iPad, I'm going to click my drop down menu and I'm going to give her a 5. But if I'm like walking around and Joey is being a goof and Joey is kind of like half um, putting together some kind of plan, but that plan needs a lot of supports, I'm going to give Joey a 2. So I would just on my drop down menu, I click the arrow and I click the number of where I am. If you look, you can kind of see that I've got a 0 for like there's nothing there, and I have an A for if the student's absent. Sometimes in my really big classroom, if they're sitting at a level 3, like where we kind of want them to be, I leave it blank. And then I just know in my mind later that I need to kind of like slot them in as a 3. So if I go and I assess this again, I might put in another date here. And then maybe today Joey pulled up his socks and he's got a 3. So by doing that, oh, my average didn't calculate. That's okay. Drag that down. There we go. So by doing that, we can see that on average, you're observing Joey plan his experiments at a level 2.5. Again, I like to give students credit for their growth. So if Joey demonstrates to me that he's planning his experiment at level 3 again, I'm going to give him a level 3 because he's grown and he has developed his abilities to meet this expectation. The other thing I really love about this tab system is if we kind of scroll over, I have columns for my evidence. So what I hear, what I see, what I think. And if I hear great conversation happening, I will write it down here. If I see something that is really proving that the student is, really proving that the student is demonstrating the expectations, I might write it in here. But if you are on an iPad or a phone, you can embed an image in this cell. So it's really easy. You can just click the cell, and I don't think you can actually do it on my Chromebook. But if you are using like a mobile device, there is a option to embed an image. So if I see a student drawing fantastic or planning a great experiment with like a fishbone planner, I might take a picture and put it in here as my evidence. If I see a student not doing what they're supposed to be doing multiple times, I might take a picture and put it in as my evidence. So that is an awesome feature that the paper tracker does not have, and it gives you some really concrete evidence that you can speak to if you have to have conversations with administration or your parents or your students about where their mark is coming from. So what I do is, this is a small, I only have 2 tabs here, and I have this E5. This is an example of when I tracked this expectation like multiple times, and you can see I've got it color coded by level. And what I also love is that if you, for example, on October 5th, I did not track Monica for this expectation. So I know on October 6th, I need to go and watch Monica and see if she can, if she understands how static charge is building up. So this is clearly tells me if and when I looked for observational evidence of my students' learning. You can kind of see I've got some pictures in here as well. So that's some proof of what my students are doing. And I have some anecdotal notes here too. So what I would do, and what I do for my class, is I duplicate my template tab. This is just a blank tab with no data in it. And I make one for every expectation. So for my class, I will have like 18 tabs, or sorry, for every learning goal, I'll have like 18 or 20 tabs at the bottom. And if we're working on a specific learning goal that day, I open that tab up on my iPad or my computer. And just when I see something or I hear something that makes me go, this student gets it, I calm down and I click in my drop down menu and I give them credit for it. So feel free to make a copy of this file And I hope that you find it useful for tracking your students when they're demonstrating their learning in your class. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, send me an email or a message on Twitter. I'd love to chat. Thanks.